CBS News senior national security analyst Fran Townsend was Homeland Security and counterterrorism advisor for President George W. Bush. Fran, good morning.
Good morning.
What are your sources telling you about the sophistication of these bombs?
So they describe them as crude and low ordnance. That doesn't mean that someone wouldn't have been hurt or maimed if they were opened, but it tells you something about the bomber, right? And so I understand all of the outsides of all of the packages look the same. These manila envelopes, 2 rows of flag stamps, all of the mailing envelopes done, all of the addresses separately done and stuck on. And so all of these provide real forensic evidence, right? You lick stamps, you touch envelopes, all of that will help investigators very quickly identify the bomber, I suspect.
What's the likelihood that investigators know of this bomber, that he's on their radar?
So it's interesting. At least 3 of them, right? The Obamas, the Clintons, and the Bidens have all been former protectees of the United States Secret Service who keep an extensive database of those who tend to threaten high-profile protectees. So you can expect that they're going back through to see if there's any common links or suspects that they may have already identified in the past.
As we went on the air just now, we saw live pictures of an NYPD truck and police car heading down the West Side Highway. Is it concern now that there are more packages out there?
There is, Gayle.
That seems to be the case
right.
This morning. Very frightening.
Right. Investigators, there's enhanced screening at the U.S. Postal Service that started yesterday. They do expect you may see additional packages today. They think all of these packages were mailed between the 16th and 18th of October. And so it's likely, once we get through today, they should have identified everything that's in the system.
As you mentioned, most of them were mailed, but it's also believed that one of them may have been hand-delivered. So looking at couriers, and we know in New York City there are cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I mean, what I heard from the PD, and this is being handled and coordinated out of the FBI's counterterrorism division in Washington.
That says something, doesn't it?
It sure does, and that's because it's multi-jurisdictional and they're still trying to identify suspects. They think that that may have been, they actually may all have been mailed, but they're looking at all the footage to see if they can identify it.
It seems like authorities have a lot to work with, do they?
They do. I mean,
like what, Fran?
So, as I mentioned, stamps get licked. Envelopes get touched. The mailing labels all had to be done on either the same computer, the same typewriter, right? All of those are forensic details. Then you get inside the package and you've got the PVC pipe, the wires, the powder. All of that is a signature, right? And you look for where did he obtain them? Did they all come from the same place?
There's a question in these cases whether this is or isn't terrorism in terms of definitionally. What is it? Does it seem like terrorism straight up to you?
It sure does. And when you're looking to inflict fear and terror for a political means on a civilian population, it pretty much triggers the definition.
See, when I spoke with the FBI director, they talked about containing the threat from homegrown terrorists, that this may not necessarily be in terms of the threats now are people who actually live here, who might be American citizens.
Yeah, there's no indication. It's interesting, although they're calling this terrorism, there's no indication that this isn't anything to do with an overseas threat. I think the operating assumption from investigators that I've spoken to is it is a homegrown threat.
There are now 9 reported bombs. What does it tell you that none of them have detonated?
I actually think in some ways we ought to take comfort from the fact they haven't detonated. I think the screening system is working. I think that the interagency process to identify these devices and the training that people have gone through since the years ago, the Unabomber case, I think it says more about the screening system and that people take it seriously.
Unfortunately, no one's hurt, but so many in this country now on high alert.
Yes.
Fran, thank you so much.
You're welcome.